You guys, we need to talk about what just happened because Kanye West's new documentary just dropped and the internet is absolutely losing it. We've got footage of Ye screaming at Kris Jenner that's gone so viral, people are actually feeling sorry for the Kardashians. Kim Kardashian, Kylie Jenner, the whole Kardashian clan is getting sympathy from the same people who used to drag them daily. And when Kanye West makes people side with Kris Jenner, you know something has gone seriously wrong. This documentary called In Whose Name is exposing things about Kanye, Kim, and the entire Kardashian family that nobody was prepared for. North West's father just destroyed his own narrative, and we're about to break down exactly how this all went down. Before we dive into this absolute chaos, if you're here for all the celebrity tea and want to stay updated on every single controversy as it unfolds, smash that subscribe button because apparently I'm better at keeping track of Kanye's meltdowns than he is.
This isn't just any documentary. Director Nico Ballesteros spent 6 years following Kanye around with a camera, capturing over 3,000 hours of footage from 2018 to 2024. That's more surveillance than the FBI does on actual criminals. The documentary shows us Kanye at his most vulnerable, most paranoid, and most destructive moments. And honestly, it's not the redemption arc he probably thought it would be when he authorized its release. The film opens by taking us back to where many believe Kanye's public downfall truly began. That infamous 2009 VMAs moment when he interrupted Taylor Swift's acceptance speech. You remember the moment that launched 1,000 think pieces and basically created the blueprint for every Twitter controversy that followed. What most people don't realize is how that single moment of poor judgment cascaded into years of self-destruction. The documentary reveals that this incident led to the immediate cancellation of his planned tour with Lady Gaga, costing him millions and starting a pattern where his biggest opportunities would be derailed by his own actions. But the VMAs incident was just the beginning. The documentary takes a dark turn when it dives into Kanye's mental health struggles, particularly his hospitalization in 2016 after abruptly canceling the remainder of his Saint Pablo tour. This hospitalization becomes a recurring theme throughout the film, almost like an open wound that Kanye keeps picking at. In one particularly disturbing scene, we see him tell Kim that he's been off his medication for months and that it's his calling by the universe. The man genuinely believed that his mental health medication was somehow interfering with his spiritual purpose on Earth. What makes this even more heartbreaking is watching Kim's reaction to these statements. You can see the fear in her eyes as she realizes the person she married is slipping away from her, replaced by someone who sees paranoia and delusion as enlightenment. The documentary shows Kanye repeatedly referencing his 2016 hospitalization not as a mental health crisis, but as some kind of awakening that the media and his family refused to understand. The film exposes how this experience strained his relationship with everyone around him and fueled a deep distrust of the media and industry figures. Instead of seeing his hospitalization as a wake-up call to take his mental health seriously, Kanye viewed it as proof that the world was out to get him. This paranoid mindset would go on to poison every relationship and opportunity that followed. Things get even more intense when the documentary explores Kanye's political awakening, starting with his decision to wear that red Trump hat in 2018. We get unprecedented behind-the-scenes footage of his infamous Saturday Night Live appearance, where he delivered a pro-Trump speech that left the cast and crew visibly uncomfortable. The documentary captures Kanye claiming that SNL tried to bully him and told him not to wear the hat on stage, setting up this victim narrative that would become central to his identity. But here's where it gets really messy. The film shows the aftermath of that SNL performance, including a tense confrontation between Kanye and cast member Michael Che. Che approaches Kanye backstage, clearly frustrated, and challenges him on some of the things he said during his speech,
particularly a comment about how every time you have a Black subject matter like Bill Cosby, you have to have a Black comedian talking about him. Che felt like this was a direct attack on him, and you can see the hurt in his expression as he confronts Kanye about it. Kanye's response is telling. Instead of apologizing or clarifying, he gets defensive and claims he wasn't talking about Che specifically. But Michael Che pushes back, asking why Kanye felt the need to call out the SNL cast on live television when they couldn't respond, especially when they had always supported him. The conversation gets so heated that a third party has to step in and ask the cameras to stop rolling, but not before we see Kanye's complete inability to handle criticism or take responsibility for his words.
Throughout this political phase, the documentary reveals something genuinely terrifying. Kanye's admission that he was scared of politics and felt his life was in danger when wearing the Trump hat. He tells White House staff that he needs to come inside for his safety because he fears for his life. So he was promoting political views that he himself was afraid to publicly support. The contradiction is staggering. He's willing to destroy relationships and tank his career for beliefs that he's simultaneously too scared to fully embrace. The most explosive moments in the documentary come when Kanye turns his anger toward the Kardashian family, particularly in a scene that has Kris Jenner breaking down in tears. We see Kanye screaming at Kim's mother, demanding that she admit that their family is responsible for his mental health problems. It's genuinely difficult to watch because you can see Kris trying to reach him, telling him she loves him and wants him to get help, while Kanye becomes increasingly agitated and irrational.
In this confrontation, Kanye literally tells Kris Jenner that he would rather be dead than take his medication and demands that she take responsibility for his mental state. Kris, through tears, actually admits that the family has had an effect on his mental health, but tries to explain that what random people say online shouldn't matter. What matters is that the people close to him love him. It's one of the most raw, heartbreaking scenes in the entire documentary, and it shows just how impossible Kanye had become to help. The film then follows the family on a trip to Uganda, which was clearly meant to be some kind of intervention or healing experience. But even there, Kanye's paranoia is on full display. Kim is captured on camera, emotional and desperate, sitting with people close to Kanye and begging him to see that he wasn't like this just a couple of years earlier. She's pleading with him to listen to people, reminding him that she gets told no all the time and doesn't lash out in response.
This Uganda trip footage is particularly heartbreaking because you can see Kim's last attempt to save their marriage. She's not being dramatic or attention-seeking. She's genuinely trying to reach the man she fell in love with. But Kanye's paranoia had reached the point where he couldn't trust anyone, not even his own wife, who was clearly trying to help him. Quick pause. If you're invested in this story and want to see how it all unfolds, hit that subscribe button because we're only halfway through this disaster, and trust me, it gets worse. After the Uganda trip, there was a brief period where things seemed to calm down. Kanye stepped back from politics, entered his Sunday service era, and even renewed his vows with Kim. The documentary shows this period as Kanye presenting himself as reborn and more grounded in his faith. But looking back now, it feels more like the eye of a hurricane. That deceptive calm before everything gets worse.
This religious rebrand was clearly strategic. Kanye knew his political comments had damaged his image, so he pivoted to Christianity as a way to rehabilitate his public persona. The Sunday service events were carefully crafted spectacles designed to make him appear spiritual and stable. But the documentary reveals that behind the scenes, nothing had really changed. He was still the same paranoid, medication-refusing person who had just found a more palatable way to present himself to the public. But by 2020, the mask came off again when Kanye announced his presidential run. The documentary shows him becoming increasingly obsessed with building this new world in Wyoming, experimenting with sustainable Yeezy projects and architecture that seemed more like the fantasies of someone disconnected from reality than actual business plans. His statements during this period became increasingly erratic and harmful, causing chaos online and making fans question whether they could continue supporting him.
The final nail in the coffin of his marriage came when Kanye revealed during a campaign rally that he and Kim had considered not having Northwest. This wasn't just a political misstep, it was a deeply personal betrayal that Kim couldn't forgive. The documentary shows how this moment was the breaking point for Kim, who had already been dealing with years of Kanye's public meltdowns and private paranoia. Shortly after this revelation, Kim filed for divorce, citing that they simply could not make their relationship work anymore. One of the most disturbing aspects revealed in the documentary is Kanye's genuine belief that he was untouchable. He repeatedly spoke as if Adidas could never afford to lose him, convinced that he had made the company billions of dollars and was therefore immune to consequences. This delusion of invincibility is what made him feel comfortable making increasingly outrageous statements, including his later anti-Semitic comments.
The documentary shows Kanye literally saying that Adidas couldn't drop him because he was too valuable. He had convinced himself that his commercial success gave him the freedom to say anything without facing real consequences. This mindset explains why he seemed genuinely shocked when companies actually started cutting ties with him after his White Lives Matter shirts and anti-Semitic rants. Rather than learning from these consequences, the documentary shows Kanye doubling down on his controversial statements. Instead of apologizing or seeking help, he became more defiant, seemingly unable to acknowledge the real-world harm his words were causing. The film captures his descent into complete isolation as Live Nation, AEG, and even the Sphere in Las Vegas all refused to work with him. But perhaps the most significant revelation from this documentary is how it has completely changed public perception of Kim Kardashian's role in their relationship. For years, Kanye's fans blamed Kim for his problems, suggesting she was holding him back or somehow responsible for his mental health issues. This documentary has flipped that narrative entirely. We're seeing Kim's side of the story for the first time, and it's revealing her as someone who spent years trying to help a person who refused to be helped. The footage shows her trauma response of staying unnaturally calm during Kanye's outbursts, a survival mechanism she developed to avoid escalating already volatile situations. People are finally understanding that Kim's composure during chaotic moments wasn't coldness, it was self-preservation. The documentary inadvertently shows Kim as someone who protected Kanye's image for years while suffering in silence. She could have exposed his behavior much earlier, but she consistently chose to handle their problems privately, only speaking out when his actions began affecting their children. Even her close friends are captured on camera, expressing amazement at her ability to stay calm in situations that would have most people running for the exits. Throughout the documentary, Kanye struggles to articulate what his story even is. He repeatedly complains that the media wants him to talk about being bipolar, but he pushes back and reframes everything as him being misunderstood, more authentic off his medication, or targeted by outside forces. The film shows his desperate attempts to control his narrative while simultaneously being trapped by his own actions and his refusal to accept help or criticism from anyone. Kanye is clearly aware that people interpret his outbursts as symptoms of mental illness, but he resists that narrative because he doesn't want to be defined by it. Instead, he frames his behavior as intentional, political, spiritual, or visionary. Anything but a mental health crisis that requires treatment. This resistance to getting help becomes the common thread connecting all of his self-destructive behavior.
The documentary ends with Kanye seemingly at peace with everything he's lost: his marriage, his business partnerships, his friendships, and much of his fan base. He appears to have accepted that his refusal to compromise or seek help has cost him everything. But he frames this loss as a price he was willing to pay to remain true to himself. It's a tragic ending because you realize that Kanye views his isolation not as a consequence of his actions, but as proof of his authenticity. He's convinced himself that losing everything means he's won some kind of moral victory, when in reality, he's just a man who chose his delusions over his relationships, his health, and his future. The most ironic outcome of this documentary is that it completely backfired on Kanye's attempt to control his narrative. Instead of generating sympathy for his struggles or validating his claims about being misunderstood, it has done the opposite. People are walking away from this film feeling sorry for Kim Kardashian, impressed by Kris Jenner's patience, and horrified by Kanye's behavior. And if you made it through this entire breakdown without subscribing, you're clearly a masochist who enjoys watching train wrecks in slow motion. Which means you should definitely subscribe because this channel is basically your therapy. The documentary serves as a cautionary tale about what happens when mental health issues go untreated and when someone's inner circle enables destructive behavior in the name of loyalty. It's a reminder that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is set boundaries, even if it means walking away. Kim Kardashian finally learned that lesson, and the world is finally understanding why it took her so long to get there. This has been one of the most complex and heartbreaking celebrity stories of our time, and the documentary captures it all with unflinching honesty. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this breakdown and whether you've seen the documentary yourself. I'll be back with more celebrity chaos because apparently that's what we do here. Peace out.